something to say.
All right, we have a special feature for you today, and it's going to be story time. Now, before you guys start rolling your eyes like, oh my God, what's going to be about now? Don't forget, if you're listening to this, you can watch it so you can kind of see my mannerisms, maybe a little bit more entertaining, maybe a little bit more annoying, all depends what your flavor is. But if you're listening now, don't forget you can watch it on my YouTube channel. Go to my YouTube channel where it is under Dominate. And then once you're on the Dominate YouTube channel, you can click under Unfiltered, and then you will see all of the podcasts that I do and videos that I do in audio. It is available in video. Now, you guys watching video and just had to listen to that. As you know, you can watch on audio. So if you're in a rush or you want to listen while you're doing your cardio or while you're doing your homework or while you're getting in an argument with a loved one and you just want to listen, you can listen. It's on iTunes and also Spotify underneath Dominate Unfiltered. Don't forget I spell Dominate, D-O-M-I-N-8, Dominate, and under Unfiltered. So, this episode, I've been in the industry for 20 years. It's 2020, been in 20 years, and how did I get to the point where I'm now talking to a camera and doing podcasts and videos, and then I have my international, fitness and body transformation company. So how did I get to where I am now? Well, I'm going to start from the very, very beginning. And I'm going to start telling stories about experience that I had as a trainer or clients or my spray tan business. So within the past 20 years, there's been a lot of changes. And there's also been a lot of bloopers, learning experiences, successes, failures. And I'm going to share some of those with you guys. No, not all today because I can't fit 20 years into just one story. But I'm going to start with where it all started. Now, growing up, I wasn't the smartest guy. And I don't know if this is politically correct, but I wasn't dumb. I don't know if I can say that or not, but it's unfiltered, so I'm going to say it. So I wasn't dumb, I wasn't smart, I was kind of just like the average student, but where I did excel was excelling in sports. So phys ed, intramurals, team sports and stuff growing up. That was always my thing. I was always being active. We had a farm. We were able to do chores. We had horses. We had tons of land, pasture, quads. We had, the best of both worlds where, most of my life was in the city, but then we could escape to the farm and, do the farm things. So that was where it was started. Did I ever think I would end up here where I am now? Not a chance. I remember growing up and like my brother, he was smart. Like he was like an A student, A plus, A minus, the odd B. I was more of a C. C plus was a good day. B was, I nailed it. And so at one point, my mom and dad decided to say, well, I'm going to give some incentive and let's say I'm going to pay our sons for every single A that I got. And let's just say if you were to look at my bank accounts back then, you wouldn't see a huge income influx between before report card and post report card. Now, people that are listening, I still think school is important. School is very, very important. And it teaches you a lot of skills. And for me, I didn't really get smarter as in terms of grades until after high school. And then the post-secondary where I was able to start studying things that I wanted to study, take courses that I wanted to take. And that's when I found that I was getting the grades that I knew I deserved. And I worked harder at it again because, again, it's topics. Social studies, physics, all that kind of stuff was not really my focus because, like I said, growing up was sports. I remember there was a couple years ago, and a couple years ago could be up to like 10, 15 years ago, my mom sent me a binder. And in the binder was a clip. It was a bunch of clips that were from, sports and from track and from football and soccer and everything else because it wasn't uncommon to see me in the news. Now, in the news for the right reason, and that is N-E-W-S, in the news. Saying it almost sounded like I said in the nude, but it was in the news. And it was awesome because that's, again, where my traction was coming, where, How did Nathan do today? Is Nathan stoppable? Oh, unstoppable. Oh, players are going out and seeking to take Nathan out. And, it was fun to see. It was great for the ego, great for the self-confidence, but the grades itself wasn't necessarily a reflection of it. And I was spoiled. I did not live far from school. Now, not living far from school, people were like, oh, that's awesome. You could walk. Well, I could. Now, did I walk all the time? No. There was times where, my mom or dad would drive me to school, and it was literally a 600-yard drive. Or at the end of school, like at the end of the day or something like that, I had teachers that would drop me off. So it was kind of neat. And don't go there. Teachers were nice. Everything was fine. Everybody was professional. But like, hey, Nathan, do you want to ride home? And yes, Mr. So-and-so would give me a ride home. And that's what I want you guys to know. These stories, I'm not going to tell 100%. I'm going to keep it at about 90 and then kind of mix in a 10, either for comic or to have it to be less revealing of who I'm specifically talking about, because I am not asking for people's permission to tell stories that they're included in. So what I'm doing to save them going, oh my God, I totally forgot about that, or you're in a position of life where you don't want to rehash that moment, don't worry. Unless you come out and say, hey, that was me, or oh my God, I totally forgot about it, you're safe. You can breathe. But some of these are going to be about you, and some of these, well, they're going to be about you too. So, back to where I was. Growing up, not the smartest in school, more into sports. What did I think I was going to become? Well, I was thinking I was going to get into automotive mechanics or into auto body mechanics. And it was something that I definitely had an interest. I remember even in school, there was a mechanic class and, taking apart the motors and small motors and, lawnmowers. And I remember for my graduating project was to restore a 1959 Chev Bel Air. Now that, for people that don't know what that car is, it was a classic car. It had the nice wings. It was gorgeous. And so I rebuilt that for my final grade in mechanics, and I did the auto body and I painted and everything. Now, I don't want you guys to think that this was a moment of Barrett Jackson style of a restoration. No. I mean, it was nice. The speaker on the inside, and I say speaker, was interesting. I actually had the speaker and I put it inside of a yogurt container, and then my ground was my key, so that I took a wire from the speaker and I hung it onto the ignition key, and that grounded it, so I'd add tunes. So it was clean, but it wasn't done, because at that age you don't have that $5, $10, $15, $20,000, and I wasn't getting the A's to help supplement the income. So it was good enough, but I loved doing it. And then I started researching it into a little bit more, and my mom and dad did as well. And the chemicals and stuff that were used in paint and the way that they were actually circulating the air wasn't up to specs. And the life expectancy of people in that industry then wasn't very high. So I was like, it's not going to be for me. Well, moving into the sports, which was my primary after that, was, while the U.S. was, I did have a connection into the U.S. where a coach that I was working with told me and was explaining to me how they could get me into the U.S., but I wasn't ready for that. I wanted to move to Calgary, which I am still here. And of course, you have the ego saying, well, if I can potentially make it in the U.S., well, I should be a superstar in Canada. Well, I moved up here in a hockey bag in a 1986 Grand Marquis, and it was one of a kind. Now, what I mean by one of a kind is because it was propane and gas. So you had a propane tank and then you had a gas tank. Well, with propane, to go at a cruising speed of, I think it's 55 miles an hour, 110 kilometers an hour-ish, when you're on propane, you really got to push that pedal down. Like, you're really flooring it. You're making it something happen. And then when all of a sudden you see your propane fuel tank go down and you flick it over to gas, if you forget to take off the cruise control and you flick it over, well, now your pedal's 3/4 of the way down, and then you flick the switch, it is like Back to the Future. The boat would would just take off. And it was kind of fun, as a kid and stuff like that. And it was my very first car coming up. So all I had was a hockey bag and this 1986 Grand Marquis and some money in my pocket and some non-aided A marks in my bank account. So I was moving on, going to practice. I'm like, all right, I can make this. I'm going to go to tryouts here in Calgary. I'm on my way there, and I'm in a little two-seater sports car, a Nissan 280 ZX. I think it was a ZX. And I went to stop at a red light. It was turning yellow, and I wasn't going to run it, so I stopped. Well, a one-ton truck was behind me, and it decided it was going to run the red light. Unfortunately, I was the stopped force in between them getting through the intersection, and they rear-ended me and basically tore all the muscles in the back of my neck. And the outcome of it was there was no more sports for me for that year. The doctor told me that I'd have to go through a bunch of rehab, strengthen myself, gain some muscle, and then I could come back in a year. So I worked really hard. I hit the gym. I was going hard with my focus, saying, you know what? 1 year, one obstacle. I can make it through this. I'm going to persevere through this. Well, year passes, driving on my way to tryouts again, talking to the coach, talking to my boys then. I'm like, I'm on my way. They're like, you're going to kill it. You got this. Now, talking then wasn't the whole text, and I'm doing the text hand sign because that's what I'm used to. It was either the phone call or it was a email, but the quick, hey, good luck, no, that wasn't existing. You had to call someone up, and I don't know why I'm using this hand sign. I never used it before, and now this is going to be my phone. I'm going to have to kick that habit. But buddies would call you up saying, good luck, I'm on my way to tryouts, and there was a lady that was at a stop sign, was thinking about her math test, and she decided to go through and sideswipe me. And I remember looking over to the side, and I seen this car ramming towards me. I'm like, it's totally going to hit me. I'm like, oh, crap. And it tore the whole side of my neck. And she got out. She's very apologetic. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And she goes, I was worried about my math test, and I'm trying to pass it, and I must have just not used the brake, and I must have pressed the gas instead of the brake. Well, I had my own opinion of that at that point, but all the muscles in my neck on the side now were torn, and the doctor said, the amount of soft tissue damage you've done in the past 2 years, you could go back and play sports, but the risk of you getting injured worse, being paralyzed, or nerve damage, or, he just gave a long list of what ifs. I decided that was the time that my sports career was over. Now what are you going to do? Because you had a chance to go to the States. You had a chance, you thought you had something in the town I was in. And now that's over. 2 accidents, said and over. And I remember my dad saying many times, don't put all your eggs into the sports basket because all it takes is one injury and options and doors close. Well, I didn't believe him, but, now I look back and, when that was it, I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'm so glad that you just didn't let me do my full sports and let my education lapse. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, I took up, and I've had a lot of jobs in this city. I remember my parents were so patient. I have done everything from selling knives. I've sold vacuums. I've been a telemarketer. I have worked at a car wash where I was the only guy with a driver's license. So I was the guy that was taking the car from the guest, driving around to the front. Then I'd walk to the front, get the car. And that was basically my job because I was the only person there that actually had their driver's license. Did that. And then I decided to take up the wonderful world of massage therapy. Now, back then, and I'm talking 20 plus years ago, massage therapy was a little bit different than what it is now. It wasn't a success story. It was fantastic because I took sport massage, I took reflexology, I took acupressure. So I took all these different courses, and of course, I was excited to work. What I found out quickly was men weren't excited for me to massage their women, so they weren't supportive. And then men weren't excited for me to massage them either. So it was really a slim market on who was readily available to invest into a massage. And I ended up working with a lot of sports team doing sport massage. And that was more or less, with a synchronized swim team on the side of the pool deck, or it was with a track team. And it was more or less just helping the athletes get ready and warm up their muscles so they could go perform their best. It was fun, but it wasn't enough to pay the bills. So I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't want to sell more knives. I didn't want to... Yeah, that's tasty. Is it whiskey? I don't know. I do know. You don't know, but let's just pretend it's water. If I start slurring by the end of this, maybe it was whiskey or maybe the coffee's worn off. But I didn't know what to do. I thought about going back to school. There was nothing there that was available to me because of my grades, so I couldn't necessarily go back into business or anything like that, because now it bites in the ass that you don't get all those good grades. So yes, stay in school, get the good grades. It's better to have options of what you can do instead of all of a sudden looking at your grades and then looking at what you can do and saying, okay, what can a C+ student do for a career? And then the list is like short. So work on your grades, get through the school. It's better to have the option, so you have all the options you want to do instead of your options are limited on how well your grades are. So I didn't know what to do. I was doing the massage thing. It was okay. It wasn't paying the bills, but I needed money. And I remember being so broke. And, coming from a small town to this big city, you're just flabbergasted on how crazy and how many people and how many bars there were. And I remember going to the bar, and you went to the bank before and you took out, let's say, $200, but you knew that $200 was most of your rent. It was gas money and it was food money. So you have all this money, but you didn't want to seem broke, because we all know what people think of broke people in the club. You all making fun of us. And then your buddy would be like, yo, man, I ain't got no money. Or I remember one time he showed up and he had a bag of quarters, nickels, and dimes. And I'm like, what are you doing with that? He goes, that's all I have. And I'm like, there's no way you're going to the club and you're going to pull out a bag full of change and start counting that out. I'm like, hang on. So I had more money. So now, basically, whenever I was buying drinks for myself or for my friends, it was like, ooh, half a tank of gas. Ooh, there goes my rent money. Ooh, craft dinner this week. Ooh, hope tuna's on sale. And you just kept spending. And, it wasn't for me, because I wanted to have fun. I wanted to do things, but I wasn't in a situation to do it. So what do? I'm going to go work in the clubs. So call up my mom. Hey, Ma, guess what? I'm going to be working in a bar, and, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And her response wasn't necessarily, that's what I expected. And she goes, does your father know? And I'm like, I haven't told him yet. I was hoping that you would tell him. And so she's like, nope. So I told the whole family, I'm going to be working in a bar, and they were supportive, but they were well aware that it's not the most ideal place for a person to work, that there's so many opportunities to do things of regret. And, it was still my primary focus was getting out of it. The bar industry was cool because you could be popular and stuff. So I started out as a liquor manager. That turned into turning into a doorman. Sorry, I turned into a bouncer, and then I turned into a head doorman for a while, and then I went into hired security, and I was a bodyguard. Now, it was okay, but it was hard because you're working so many hours. You work Thursday to Sunday, and then you have, you want to go out on a Sunday night, so of course you got to socialize and everything else like that. And so trying to do massage, going to school, and working was difficult. So I remember one time my buddy called me up, and he goes, yeah, massage isn't going well. And I said, no. He goes, have you ever thought about being a trainer? Because you're always in the gym, you have athleticism, and, it seems something that's happening natural to you. So I'm like, I'll look into it. And it was a 2-year course that was squished into 10 months. So it was 10 months straight, and it was 2 years online. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And it was at the local college here. And I'm like, I'll go through it. And it was amazing. Like, the whole course was amazing. We got to work with cadavers. We did business side of it. We did exercise physiology. We did nutrition. And the actual practicum was 100 hours of watching other trainers work. Now, when getting into the fitness industry as a trainer, training then was just the word, transforming into more of a specialized event or specialized class where it was no longer included with your gym membership. It was something that you would pay as an added fee. Normally, trainers would get paid that $6 or $7 or $8 an hour. They would sit there, a member would show up, and all of a sudden would be like, okay, let's go training. And you're like, okay. So, you're there for 8 hours a day training people basically for free. And then when I started, it started out at $55 an hour. And that's what I was charging. And it was exciting because what was happening, you do the math. You're like, okay, if I do $55 an hour and I do 4 sessions, that's $220 a day times 5 is $1,100 times 4 is like $4,400 a month. Now, that's a lot of money. Back then, you could get a 2,200 square foot home with a big, huge attached double car garage and a big yard for about $180,000, $190,000. So making $4,000 a month was massive. You were making it. So I remember when I called up my family, I told them, like, oh, we'll make this money. And of course, they're like, yes, that sounds great, but let's see how it goes. So I promised, so I'll do this for 6 months and then I will get a real job. And it was something probably in the oil and gas. I don't even know what it would have been, but I needed to try. It was a step up from selling knives, door to door, or vacuums. I'm going to have to tell those stories one time, but this is more just where we got to where we are now. And I will go into further detail in other areas, but I'm on a roll. So massage was done. I'm still working in a bar. I'm done my PFT course. And what am I going to do next? Well, I start working at a gym. And as I'm working in a gym, it's very intimidating because I don't know how to sell. I mean, I have sales tips on how to sell knives and vacuums, but now you're actually going to sit in front of someone and ask for $55 an hour and ask them to buy 20 to 30 sessions at once. And you're just sitting there going, wow, because you're personally broke. And you're like, there's no way I could afford it. But now you have to do a consult and you got to talk to people and convince them and portray to them that there's a value in this spending $3,000, $4,000 in personal training. And I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? Well, luckily enough for me, the manager at the club said, I walked in one day and she's like, hey, Nathan. I'm like, yep, I have a client for you. I'm like, oh my God, it's my first client. I was so excited. So I'm like, where is she? And she goes, she's right over there. And she's sitting at the bike. And I remember going over there and my heart was pounding. And, she was older than me. I was 20 at the time. And, she was maybe, I don't know, 40, 45. I don't know. And I sat down. I'm like, hi, my name's Nathan. And I hear that you bought 10 sessions and I'm going to be your trainer. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you want to share with me or what your goals are. Well, what came out of her mouth, I was not ready for. It was something that has never happened in 20 years. And she goes, okay, well, let's get this straight. My name is this. It's not this. It's not this. It's not this. If you call me this, I will tell you where to go and I will never come back and I will fire you as a trainer. It was a long list of 10 things. And I was like sitting there and I was like, if this is what training's like, then I am not designed for this. And my first thing was, okay, cool, no problem. In the back of my head, I was scared shitless. I was scared to say the wrong thing. And some things were like she didn't want to do lunges or she didn't want to do any lunge type exercises. She always had a pad for her tailbone because she had a car accident, and her tailbone was very sensitive to sit on. So she had her pad and everything was great. And I was scared. But it was amazing on how much she was respected and loved in the gym. Like she would walk through the gym and everybody's like, hi, how are you? Because she believed that fitness was very, very important. She was booking 5 sessions a week and she bought 10. She goes, this 10 goes good. I'm going to buy 50 or 100 at a time. So I'm like, okay, well, at least I have some money coming in. Now, out of that $55 I mentioned to you I was training, I was only getting between $16 and $18 of that. So almost $40 of that, $39 of that was vanishing and going to the club. So I would have to work so much to make that $4,000 that I was telling my family I was going to make. But my first client, when you work within the rules, amazing. She was so nice and we would laugh and tell stories and it was fantastic. And it took me a while to get used to it because also the other part of it was if she was late, you'd have to wait. Now, if somebody is 10 minutes late for a session and I don't hear from them now, I'm gone. I'm see you later. I will hide. Too bad. So sad. But She's like, I paid for the hour. Sometimes I'll be 10, sometimes I'll be 20, sometimes I'll be 30 minutes late. I'll try to let you know, but don't go anywhere. And also, sometimes I have to leave early. Well, sometimes she would show up for a 10-minute session, a 20-minute session, 30-minute session, and she would just leave. Okay, I'm done. I got to go. Now, some people are thinking, well, what in the world's going on? Well, that's just how she was, because she owned 2 or 3 different oil companies, and then her husband had, I think, 2 different oil field consultant companies. So she was super busy. So she says getting fitness in when she can is number 1. And so if I only have 20 minutes, she goes, I will be here for the 20 minutes, give you my best, and move on. And I got to go back to work. And I understood it. So it was totally fine. And we trained together, I think, for probably 5 or 6 years until she retired from work. And then she moved out of town. And then that was the end of it. We still stayed in touch for a little bit after that. But an amazing client. She scared the living bejeebies out of me. And, as these clients, I couldn't make enough money off of one client. So I had to start doing these consults. Now, with these consults, I remember they were terrible. And the gym I was working at, it had a special of 3 sessions for $99. Now, out of those 99, 3 sessions for $99, which is now $33 a session, we were making $13 or $14 of that session. Oh, so we're not making very much, but my consult went like this. Hi, my name's Nathan Harewood. I'm here to coach you. We have a special, and they are 3 sessions for $99. Would you like to train with me? Now, most people answers no, so they're like, nope. Okay, well, if things ever change, then please let me know, and the special's not going to be running for very long, so make sure you act fast. That was it. And, these consults were the things where you put those bioimpedance pads on their hands, and you tell them how fat they are or not, and how much muscle or how much water they have, and you do these little consults, and they did have a written script, but the script didn't fit my personality, and still to this day, when I'm dealing with other coaches and other companies and talking about how to build that demand and how to do consults, you have to do a consult that matches your personality. Now, with these sales, it was basically a fill in the blank, and you read it. Hi, my name is blank, blah, 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 blah. And then it was the typical sales techniques with, you try to get 3 yeses. Once you get 3 yeses, then you ask for the close and all this kind of stuff. And it didn't necessarily work for me. A, resilient to learn something new or try something new, but B, it wasn't into my personality. But it didn't go very successful. And the income wasn't what I wanted. So what did I do? I got a job at another gym. So now I'm working at 2 gyms. One gym's on the weekends, one gym's during the week, and still working at the bars. So it was very difficult because bar shifts would start at 8. You'd be home at 3:30 or 4. My morning shift at the gym would start at 8. So I'd get like 3 hours of sleep, go to work through the gym, through the day, have a couple hours sleep, go back to the bar. And it was just low sleep, and I was doing whatever I could to make it. Now, what was happening was I wasn't getting traction, but I was so passionate about it. And while I was working at the other gym, I decided that I needed to now hone in on my skills. So I'm like, what's the best way to beat people and be there? Well, I decided to do group exercise classes. And I needed that more income, and I had to have, because what was happening at the gym was you'd have quotas. With the quotas, if you didn't reach it, the last day of the month, you had to close every single person that walked in the door. And you'd be doing cold calls. You haven't been here. Where you been? Hi, I've done assessment. Someone walks in. Oh my God. Hey, you want to do a workout? And you never got paid for this. And I laugh because most trainers out there now, it might be a little much, but a lot of trainers out there now, they hate cold calls. They will not call. They will not walk around. They will not put garbages away. They will not close the doors in the locker. They have this persona that if they ain't getting paid for it, well, I'm just going to go work on my own game. And until someone wants to hire me, I'm going to sit on my ass. But that's not how sales works. So while I was doing all these these cold calls, working the end of the month, if I didn't reach my quota, I started doing the math, and I'm like, I have to get my name out there. So what did I do? I started teaching group exercise classes. Now, with those group exercise classes, spin was my very first one. And some people that know me are like, what? You did spin? What? No, hang on. Not necessarily. What I did was I started on the spin bike, and then I was the first person in the gym to get off the spin bike, and then I would just walk around and trash talk people. And I'm trash talking. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, this is lazy, this. And, people try to fake spin. So I'm turning up the handle. So they're sitting there and having to work. And then I had them jump off the bikes and they're using the handles and the weight to move the bikes up and down for resistance and burpees and stuff. And my boss at the time were like, Nathan, that's not really a spin class. You should try doing this other group class. And it was called circuit resistance training. It was partial cardio, and then you'd move on to the weights, and they're all the machines, and you do it in a circuit. Now, that was awesome because people would get to experience what my training was like. I got to meet more people that would, again, hire me, and it would start causing more income. Now, group exercise was a nice addition, but again, it wasn't making the money that I needed to survive so that I wouldn't have to worry about being that guy with a bag of nickels going to the club or for dinner. Now, what I did is actually created my very first group exercise program. Now, this was a group program where it was a discounted rate, and I called it Fit RX. Now, that was a PH. Now, some of you guys are trying to be fat, PHAT, but I was trying to get people fit, PHIT. And what it stood for was Platinum Hard Bodies in Training, and then the RX was kind of like the prescription RX, the Dr. RX, you see, a little bit different. But it stood for Results Extreme. And so that was the very first group project that I ever did with exercise programs. And I did the nutrition and people would train in groups. And it wasn't even for shows then. It was just to get in shape. And people loved it. People loved it. They started working out hard. We would do core all the time. We would, we'd do cardio, weights, and of course, trash talking. That was my thing. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I still remember when I was doing a group session in this FitRx, and there was a big long lunge lane. Through that lunge lane, people were lunging and everything, and I was young then. Remember, I was 20 or something like that. And when the clients were lunging, this one particular client, they were lunging, and I remember clearly, as it was packed. Now, this was lunch hour. This gym is packed for lunch, and they're doing lunges. And what did I come up with? Well, while they were lunging, I was going 1 tubby tubby, 2 tubby tubby. Now, that was from a movie called Major Pain. And I made it probably to 10 tubby tubbies the whole time. Wow. It was funny. It was good laughter. She took it well. Looking back, could I do that now? Not a chance. But it was still just trying to get my name out and get people talking and, be the loudest guy in the gym and try to have as much traction as I can to make this into a career. It went well. Things started going great. The group exercise was going. So now I'm working in the clubs. I'm working in 2 gyms. I'm working in 1 bar. I have group exercise classes I'm teaching. Plus, I have my very first transformation program that I'm doing. So things were looking up. The massage thing was dead. It was over. It was done. Donezo. Never going to go do it again. Went broke. But it is very, very advantageous to have this education because I have about 6 years of post-secondary education combined of taking different courses and understanding the body and anatomy and physiology. And it was very, very useful, but it was not a career for me. And now that I look back, am I glad that I didn't pursue the massage? Yes and no. There's so much more studies now about the benefits of massage and acupressure and cupping and fascia and everything else that massage therapists today are doing way better than I was back then. But I'm happy where I'm at now, and I don't have to worry about my hands getting worn out, sore elbows, sore back, sore shoulders. So it is a bonus that I get to be a coach. Moving on, I was so excited, but I still wanted more. I'm a guy that I would want more and more education. I want to build this empire. And so what did I do? I go on the internet. Now, the internet isn't what we have here. It's not on the phones. It's not what you guys are used to. You turn it on and it goes. I remember it was, what was it, 15.6? Or you had 26 kilobytes? 56. It was like 56K or something. And it was so fast, like 56 kilobytes a second. And we were so excited. But the internet was more of a turn it on. It was slow. Pretty much the old school of, and then you're connected. Somebody picked up the phone, boom, cut off. So I go on the internet, start looking at all these different areas, and I picked up a magazine and I was so excited. It was called Galaxy Fitness. Galaxy Fitness. That's what it was. It was down in Florida. So what do? I fly down to Florida to take this guy's course. The course was about how women should be training properly and women shouldn't be training like men. The catch for this was anyone that went to the seminar and they were able to debunk his philosophies, he would pay for your hotel, he would pay for your flight, he would pay for your food, he would give you $1,000 cash, and there was something else in there as well. So I had to go down there and I had to say, you know what? I'm a coach, trainer. I was a trainer then, still the same thing. I just prefer to use coach now. I was a trainer and I wanted to become the best. So I fly down to this. I'm like, I'm going to make money. I'm going to have this whole thing paid for. I'm going to have money in my pocket. You know, it's kind of like when a girl goes to Vegas, you guys can go broke and come back with exuberant amounts of money. It was my turn. I was going to Florida, going to take this workshop, take all this guy's information, make $1,000 and come back. Well, for 3 days, the guy made me feel like I was that big, like I knew nothing. So now I'm brainwashed. I'm loving it. It's great. And we had a great conversation. And he wanted me to take the Galaxy Fitness and bring it into Canada. Well, why not? Let's throw another thing on the plate to do. So I went, invested into it. Not only was I now the coordinator for Canadian Galaxy, I bought some fitness equipment that was nothing up to par. It was like a pole on, there's 2 poles that was on a base that you could use it for stability and do lunges. So I bought that. As well, I bought into a spray tanning company where I now had like 4 or 5 gallons of spray tan product. I had a spray gun. I had a tent. And I'm like, how did I get into this? Now, spray tanning was a time in my life where it was amazing, but there's so many stories, and I could just spend days on stories, and yes, I will share some of those at some point. But now I came back. Someone's like, how was it? Oh, it was good. You know, I learned this. I felt like this much, this big the whole time. I learned so much, but now I have a spray tan company, and now I'm going to run my own national event, and it's going to be great. What happened with that National Galaxy Fitness event, Canada? It was a learning experience. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on the theater, on advertising, radio, papers, newspapers, magazines, getting out there. All we had was Facebook then. So I spent tens of thousands. I think it was close to $24,000 I spent on this event. The event was a little bit different than what the shows are now. It was a cross between the typical, we had a bikini round, we had a fitness round where there were certain moves that they had to do, show flexibility and strength. And then we had a theme round where they could dress up in any kind of athletic attire or costume and so forth. And so that's what it was. I went all out. I had a fire breathing act where the guy was swallowing fire, had swords, had the chain with a fireball on the end of it. I had fashion shows. I had a stand-up comedian. I remember inside the theater, it had a huge chandelier. It was gorgeous. 20 people, I think there was in the show. Doors open, not a single person came in. I might not give it 5 minutes. We waited 30 minutes, and at that point, there was 8 people in the audience. And my thought was, this was a flop. Oh my goodness, I just lost over $20,000. Pretty much everything I had. And 8 people showed up. So now when people do the math, I work a lot, pretty much primarily with the WBFF. And they bring the best of the best. And they're using like nice theaters, 5-star hotels. They're bringing top-notch everything for all the models. And people look at the money saying there was, 300 athletes plus this, plus that, plus hair, plus tanning. Yeah, those numbers do add up to something large, but the amount of money going out to create that is almost as big. So you have all these different things that I wasn't aware of on where the money goes. So I take my hats off to the WBFF and how you guys do what you do and make it a success is unbelievable. It is obviously running events is nothing up my forte, but now understanding that what the WBFF does is huge and be able to run it and not being in theaters. So I ran the show. It wasn't going very, very well. It was a flop. I had to end it. So there goes all that money. I'm never, ever going to get it back. But it was a nice learning experience. So I went back to training, kept doing what I was doing. It was a lot of fun. And I was waiting for the next opportunity to come up because the Platinum Hard Bodies in training was going well. I was starting to get people into transformations. I was starting to get people into shows. I went and actually published a book that back then, I think that was, it was 17, 18 years ago, published my first book called Hardcore Abs. It's not out there anymore. So I published that, and I was still looking for the next big ticket because I knew I hated having a ceiling and I wanted to get out of it. Well, I got a promotion. Welcome to management. I was now a manager of the personal training department of this gym, of it same chain but a different location. Sitting there, it was fun. It was neat to sit back, kind of manage, the trainers, teach them things, do their payrolls. It was something fun. Not a lifelong career, again, because I had a ceiling because you could only make so much. And I just had this drive, this entrepreneurial passion, obsession that I wanted to be my own boss. One day went to work. You never know what each day is going to bring to you when you wake up. I went to work, walked into my office, and I remember this gentleman and this lady came up to me and they're like, we have this business opportunity for you and we need you part of it. So we're going to tell you what it is, but are you ready for change? And I was first thinking, oh, here comes this multi-level marketing. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for change. And I've already sold knives. I've already sold credit cards. I've already sold vacuums. I've already sold things out of a box in a parking lot. So what else could there be that I didn't know about? Wow, the opportunity that they had was amazing. And I'd love to tell you about it, but we're going to stop right there. This is the beginning of the flashback of how I got to where I am now. I want to thank everybody for listening or thank everybody for watching. On the next episode, which I'm not going to tell you when, so be sure to watch my channel for the information because this will be continued. Please watch it. As well, while you're watching, if you guys want, grab some food. While you grab some food, what are you going to grab? You're going to grab some spices. Don't forget about my spice range. The spice range that we have, I said I, but it's a we. The spice range that we have is amazing. We have 3 different profiles. Go to www.dominate.ca and you will see it right there, front page. 3 different flavors for all profiles. We have the Bold and Beautiful. That is a nice spice, but the flavor is beautiful. We have a nice Limitless spice. It is kind of like a garlic pepper blend. And we have a Ratatouille, which is a herb blend. Now, we've all tried spice. But what we did is we were bringing a quality spice to you guys that have no additives. It is vegan, no salt, no sugar, certified kosher, and no GMOs. So pretty much the spice you have will give you the same feeling of going out to the garden, freshly picking them, and putting it on your food. It is amazing flavor profile. So get out there, go to www.dominate.ca, get your spices, and let me know how it is. Thank you very much for everybody watching. I will see you on the next episode of Unfiltered.